Welcome to Tell Us Your Story with Dr. Ebony. I am Dr. Ebony. Today's topic I had to change because my guest told me that wasn't true, and I remembered she's correct. So, I guess I can say she is a most of her life resident of Lexington. This person is none other than my mother, Constance Fleming. My mom is an accomplished singer, pianist, organist, proud HBCU graduate, retired public school teacher after 35 years, community activist, devoted church member, mother, grandmother, sister, cousin. As far as some of her appointments, she was appointed to the South Carolina Arts Commission by former South Carolina Governor Carol Campbell. She served on the Arts Commission, and from that appointment, she was also appointed to the Southern Arts Federation. Years later, she was the first woman of color to be elected to serve on Lexington Town Council. She was also the first woman of color to run for mayor for the town of Lexington. And most importantly, she was born and raised here in Lexington, South Carolina. Now that we have gone over some of her achievements, just a few, how would you describe, well, before I get into this, welcome, Mama.
Hello.
How would you describe the following 4 items after growing up in Lexington? How would you describe your family?
My family was a 2-parent home, which was not always the case in many households. My parents were educators, and my grandparents played a large role in our early home life. And that's kind of what we would say was the glue that held everything together. Because when my parents were at work, we knew that one of the grandparents was going to be there, when my grandmother was going to always be there. So that's how it would describe my family.
Okay. And just to kind of make it clear, with your parents being educators and being people of color, that meant that they had to travel to their different schools and they were away from home?
Because at first, and that's why I was with my grandparents and with my aunt and uncle, which they were educators too. But they worked, well, my aunt worked in the same school that I went to. But my mother and father, my mother worked in Blackville and my father worked in Georgetown. And they would come together on certain weekends, but I stayed here the whole time and went to school. And then when my siblings came along, when I was about 7 or 8, well, 6 for one and 7 for the other, then at that point, they came together and they were able to find jobs in Batesburg, Leesville. So they were able to travel. So that made a difference. So the first 6, 7 years of my life, which are the most formative, I was actually with my grandparents and aunt and uncle. Okay. So that made a difference. But that also introduced me to a lot of what was going on here in Lexington.
I'm sure it did. We will get into that shortly. So describe the neighborhood in which you grew up.
Well, it started off as a dirt road. It's Route 2, Box 10. And all of the houses were basically wooden houses. Our house was built in, the house that I live in now even, was built in 1904. And it was one of the first houses on the street. As I said, it was a dirt road. And the other houses were built around it. It was a very close-knit neighborhood. We could play from yard to yard. Our grandparents, parents could come out and yell for us to come home. It's time to come home. And everybody was in their house. Very close-knit. If something happened somewhere, it was always going to get back to the home front. In fact, it usually beat you back to the home front. We had a phone. We had a TV. In fact, a lot of times we had a TV and other people didn't have TVs, so they could come on our porch at certain times. Daniel Boone, everybody was coming to the house, see, peeping through the window. Daniel Boone, you could hear it up and down. A fight or a ball game or something, they would come to the house. We had telephone, one of the first ones to have a telephone, one of the first ones to get a private line, because for a long time we had a party line where everybody could get on and talk, phone numbers, but it was a very close-knit neighborhood.
Okay. Describe the school that you attended.
I started off at Rosenwald, Lexington Rosenwald Hornet. I attended there for 10 years. And that was the community school. However, it was also the first Black school in this area. The Rosenwald Foundation had schools throughout the nation, throughout the United States, that they supported because they wanted to make sure that the African American students would have a chance at an education. I attended there and from grades 1 to 10. In that process, we also had students, not only from Lexington, we had students there from Gilbert, we had students there from Pelion, and my mother graduated from there, my mother and aunt, and they even told me about the time that the students came across the dam from Irma, and they were students here as well. Then when my mother graduated back in then they came together and built a school in Irma, so the children did not have to come across the dam. But the students from Gilbert and Pelion, they remained with us. Now, the interesting thing about that too was the bus drivers at that time were students themselves, and would bring the students from that particular area to Rosenwald and then take them back in the afternoon after school. But I was there from grades 1 to 10, Lexington Rosenwald. Then integration came, and we were told that our class, which was a class of 1970, would not be able to graduate. We could stay, but our senior year, we would have to have total integration would be in effect then. So we were given the opportunity to go for 2 years or for the 1. And most of us opted for the 2 years. And so we went over and was there in 11th and 12th grade. So, and everybody then at that point went to their respective areas. The Pelion students stayed in Pelion and the Gilbert students stayed in Gilbert, and we stayed in Lexington.
Okay. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the conversation. Also describe for us how Lexington was as a whole as you were growing up, and specifically downtown.
Well, downtown was the hub. First, the county seat, and everybody came to Lexington for everything. And we had all the stores, the Five and Dime, Sessions Department Store. We had the hardware store. We had the furniture store, everything. We had the drugstore. We had the grocery store. Everything was on Main Street. On Saturday morning, my grandmother and I would get up early and we'd walk downtown and pay bills or go to the stores or whatever. But the last thing we did was go to Max Cash and Carry, because then we was going to get to ride back home with our groceries. But that was the highlight. Or we even had a movie theater down here. That's right. We had a movie theater. We had everything. Like I said, we were the county seat. So the town of Lexington was, as they said, it was hot stuff. We didn't have Columbia. We had everything we needed right downtown. So
Okay.
it was
Now,
fun.
I need you to tell the story about seeing the horses and where that was located for the hitch and all of that. That blows my mind every time you tell me about it.
You talking about the horses downtown?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Well, right where the pizza place is now, across from the axe, the place where they're throwing the axes, right there on that corner, that was elevated because it had poles there that was attached, and the people would bring their horses and their wagons down, and they would attach the horses and the wagons, park them there while they went to town and did their grocery shopping and did whatever else they wanted to do. And for the longest time, that still was elevated. And people said, well, what is this? Well, we started using it to sit. There was a good place to sit and watch the parade. I said, oh, this is where they used to bring the horses. I said, they're taking down the wooden area where they would attach them. I said, and it didn't take much attaching, just wrap that around that pole, up down. Horses weren't going nowhere till they got back. But then when we had parades, they cleaned that area up and we could sit there because they wouldn't let the horses down there for the parades. So we had a nice little sitting area that we could sit in because it was elevated. But yes, it was nothing at first to see people bringing their horses and buggies and loading up just like out in the Wild West. I mean, I thought, hey, I'm watching Daniel Boone again. So yes, that was funny. Then we had some other situations with horses riding through our neighborhood that wasn't fun.
Yes,
but
we'll talk about that too.
We'll talk about that later. Yes.
So of course, growing up as an African American or Black during that time, because it was Negro and it went through the process. Being Black in Lexington, what places weren't you allowed to go to?
There were many, but the one that stands out more than anything is we were not allowed to go to Gibson Pond because we just weren't. We couldn't go. We couldn't go swimming, and we couldn't go to the shelters and have a picnic or anything. We were not allowed to do that. In fact, when we had our picnics, we went over to our church would go to Sesquicentennial over in Columbia because there really weren't any parks around here that would allow us to be a part of that. And that was one of the things that I wouldn't say it bothered me because we just didn't do it. Mm-hmm. A lot of times there's only certain places that you could go out at the lake. And that just kind of got started on this end. They would have it way down on the corner somewhere. But you couldn't just go out to the lake like they do now on both sides. That was not permitted. Mm-hmm. That same corner that had the horses, I never will forget, that was a filling station. I mean, it's been a number of things, but the filling station was about finished and people were parking there. Well, my father parked there one day and he got a ticket. Well, nobody else was getting tickets. Bad thing about it, the ticket was brown. The officer hadn't written tickets to anybody in so long. His book, the pages was brown. So, of course, my father could pay the money or he could go to court and contest it. Well, it wasn't that he didn't have the money, but he just didn't understand why he would have to pay. And I mentioned, and I say that my father was from Florida. He was from Palm Beach, so Rivera. So a lot of things that went on up here, he was not in favor of that. And he kind of let that be known. But anyway, he went to court, and before the hearing was over with, the judge was offering to pay the ticket because it was just, it just made no sense. And my dad said, well, if that's the way you want it, then you go for it because I'm not paying it. So there was a lot of places. Oh, Heights Restaurant. We could not go in Heights Restaurant. The first time I went in Heights Restaurant, I was senior, and I was invited there by Mr. Kaufman, who had a red and white food market, and he had his Christmas dinner there for his workers, and most of them were Black individuals. And he invited me to come and sing, and we were like, well, and my dad was like, are we going to have to come in the back? Oh no, you come in the front like everybody else. So we did, and boy, those waitresses, they were like, at first they were like, what, looking at us, and the one of them said, let them go. Mm-hmm, yeah, because they're gonna mess around and not get paid that night if we weren't allowed to come up in there. So different things like that, and we could order the food, but we had to get it out the bag. They'd bring it to us in the bag. So we've gone through a lot of changes. There've been a lot of improvements in this area.
Well, you mentioned your father, my grandfather, the late Willie B. character. And if any of you all would like to do any history, there's also a park named Willie B. Character Park, and it is named after him. So with some of those locations that you mentioned and some of those funny stories, I'm sure you can already tell where Momma gets some of her spunk from. And where I got some of it from, because I'm the oldest granddaughter, so I got to spend a lot of time with him. Are any of these locations still open? And how do you feel being able to access them now?
Well, of course, we know what happened with our neighborhood, our area horse trough. It is now a business, and it's been that way for a while now, no matter what it is. And Heights, of course, is gone. Mm-hmm. An interesting situation because Heights also wanted to make sure that none of these other little restaurants came in and gave any competition. So that lasted as long as it could. I think Whataburger came and they were upset about that, but it was up on the other end. And then McDonald's, and one thing after the other. So that situation is behind us. The situation with Gibson Pond was very interesting when we had the big flood. Oh my goodness, never heard tell her, never saw anything like that before. But it flooded and completely washed out. So now back in business. And somebody, even, it's funny you would say that, somebody asked me, said, well, we can go back to, we can go back to Gibson Pond and we can have some fun and we can do this and we can do that. I just looked at him, I said, oh, that's good for you. Because I was not allowed to go to Gibson Pond. You weren't allowed to go to Gibson Pond. I said, Black folk couldn't go to Gibson Pond. No. That was off limits. No way. What? Yeah. I said, so, I didn't know nothing about it. So when it flooded, I'm like, okay. And what does that mean to me? It doesn't mean anything. I said, but you're right. Now, and I had been out there before then, but now I see the value. And yeah, it's okay. But I said, oh no, there was a time we wouldn't dare go down there. I said, come on, swimming? No. I said, hey, there's a little place over here behind the sheriff's department, and it might still be back there. I said some of the some of the Black children would sneak off over there and try to go swimming. I said, we lost about 2 of them over there that drowned because there was no lifeguard or anything there, and they didn't have any business back there, but they called themselves wanting to go swimming too. I said, because that was down on the far end of Gibson Pond where people couldn't see what was going on. Mm-hmm. I said, that wasn't happening. I said the same thing out at the lake. I said that little area that they would allow them to go to, it didn't have anybody there to provide any safety for anybody. So we had quite a few young people that drowned out there as well, just trying to have some fun, like, anybody would at that age. I said, but now they can go over there and they can get in the water. And, it's like one said, no, y'all can't get in the water because y'all will make the water dirty. Excuse me? Wow. In the lake? I don't think our color has anything to do with that. But anyway, I think that's a good change. But I'm still not that wild about either one of them. But anyway, that's a personal opinion.
But and I have to go with what my oldest daughter called it. After the 1,000-year flood, it was Gibson Puddle.
Yes. Yes. And I kind of smiled on that one. I said, oh, just look at God. He's taking care of all of this, all of it. Years later, he's taking care of all of this.
Mm-hmm. But now they have kind of restructured everything and has getting it back together. And it is, people that wouldn't know that history of the segregated part of Gibson Park would have no clue that was the case.
Yes. Yes.
So that is interesting. And that leads into the next question, which, as a Black person in the South during segregation, what were some of the written and unwritten social cues that you had to follow in Lexington?
Well, the same thing I would say about downtown. It's kind of like if you were walking on the sidewalk, and this happened to me and my grandmother a lot. If we were walking on the sidewalk and somebody white came down the sidewalk, we had to stop and let them go by. You didn't walk and pass each other. That was considered disrespectful. So you didn't do that. My grandmother washed clothes for a living. And I remember one time, some of our clothes got mixed up. And the individuals that she was working for, they didn't have a problem. But somehow or another it came up while they had a visitor. And that visitor just had a fit. How dare she wash her clothes at the same time that she's washing yours? How do you allow her to do that and keep taking your clothes there? Well, this lady made it known that that did not matter, because a lot of times the clothes, if they got mixed up, her clothes was in better condition than the ones that she had sent there. We got a lot of our clothes from my grandmother in Florida sent a lot of our things, and she got them from the Catholic Goodwill. Mm-hmm. There were things that were seasonal, and the rich folk just left them behind because they were going to buy brand new when they changed season, and we didn't work it like that. So that was an instant where my grandmother could have lost her job had it not been for this lady standing up for what was going on. Then there were so many things that took place in school. Like, for instance, like I said, we lived on a dirt road, and there were many times we would get back from the road. If that bus was coming along with the white children in it, oh, they would spit out at us. They would throw things out the bus at us, and they would cuss at us. It was just crazy thing. So when we saw the bus come, we just get way, way back off the road as if we wasn't even there. And don't let it rain, because they're gonna run through that puddle and try to make sure that some of that muddy water gets on you. So just different little things like that I think of now that was just, it just wasn't right. But then again, there were places that water fountains and all. I remember the white only. You could not drink. When I saw that movie, I said, oh yeah, that's for real. That's for real. And I remember one time we were going to Florida because like I said, my father your grandfather who's passed now, was we were traveling. We would always travel. And we stopped at this gas station in Georgia, which was highly unusual because we didn't normally stop there. But we did. And he went in, paid for the gas, and came back out. And somehow or another, he looked and he saw white only on the restrooms. Now, we didn't want to go to the restroom. We knew better than that. But he saw white only and he went back in there. He said, no, I have pumped such and such. You can come and see it. I want the rest of my money back because I'm not paying nobody no money to buy paint, to put white only on nothing. They gave him his money. And next thing you know, down the road we go. It's those types of things. Because like I said, at Heights, we might have got an ice cream cone from the dairy bar, but we didn't ever order any food because my father said, no, I'm not going to the back door. I'm not paying to go to the back door and get a plate. And I don't know what you did with that plate. And so we just didn't do it. And most of the time we didn't eat out anyway. He cooked it his own self.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now over the past 5 to 6 years, there's been a rise in white nationalism and hate groups, and they are more visible than ever. And they're definitely not hiding in the shadows.
Yeah.
You told me and your granddaughters, my girls, a story that gives me chills every time you tell it. We kind of referred to it a little bit earlier. Please tell everybody watching about your memory of the ride through.
We would have ride-throughs through Hendrick Street. I told you it was a dirt road. And most of the houses on that road, I mean, we had electricity. Some didn't, some still had the candles, but we had electricity. And this was probably when I was like 5, 6, something like that, because my parents were not back yet. Well, no, I take that back. The last one, they were there. But the word would go out that the Klan was coming through. The Klan was riding. And we knew that meant those horses and those sheets coming down Hendrick Street, just putting up as much dust as they probably could put up. And at that point, we knew that we had to shut everything down, turn off all the lights. And what happened in my house, they would open the front door, they would open the back door, and they would latch the screen. And in fact, that's what they wanted, because if you closed up, it was my understanding that they would stop at that house and, you know, why are you closing up? We want to see what's going on. You got something to hide and all that type of stuff. So everything was opened, but we would latch it. My grandmother would get down beside me and put her arm out around me to make sure that I was covered. And then they would ride through, and they would just, sometimes they'd shoot the guns and it'd be shooting up in the air. They didn't shoot in the houses, from what I understand. Then sometimes they would plant crosses in yards and let them burn while they ran through, making their sound. We would stay on that floor, and then we would get up, and after everything had settled down, then we could get up, turn the lights on, lock the doors, and go to bed. It was just that simple. Just that simple. And that happened a lot. And as I got older, I found out that they rode all the way from Pilgrim up here, and they would connect with individuals here in Lexington. But it started, the horses and things was being kept in Pilgrim, and they would meet up, and every now and then they would have that ride. And if it was Hendrick Street time, well, that's what we're calling it now. But if it was our time, then they would come through. But in most cases, it wasn't a surprise. Everybody had been warned that it was getting ready to do a ride.
Wow. Now, transitioning into a most recent event, you recently celebrated your 50th high school class reunion, which is actually your 51st. Because of COVID, they had to postpone it until this year. Yes. You had mentioned that you had to segregate Lexington High, and you had to make that transition from Rosenwald, the all Black school, into the white Lexington High School. Can you describe your experience with segregation and the myths and prejudice views that you had to overcome?
Well, segregation was something at that point that many adults, they were definitely in favor of that. That's all they had ever known. So when the law came down that we had to integrate, we had to blend, there was a lot of controversy. I mean, serious controversy. We don't want them, let them stay where they are. Then on our behalf, we had many people say, well, we don't want to go over there. We want to stay where we are, which was very true. We didn't realize how good we had it until we integrated. But that was not an issue for us. We just had to go with the flow. I remember a superintendent that will remain anonymous made a statement that over my dead body, will I agree to integration and pay those so-and-so teachers. Well, we went to the funeral home and my daddy lifted me up to see his face. So I would know he was gone. So, and integration is here to stay. So, but he's so I remember that very well. And I remember as we integrated, those were some turbulent years, but they were more so for some than they were for others. I think for me, again, being in the household that I was, my dad had been in the military. And, in the military, things come up. But he had a lot of funny stories, but he had a lot of serious stories too. I think one of the ones that stays in my mind and that I would think about, he went in after he went to college, after he graduated. They would not make him an officer, him nor my uncle, but they had to do something with him. They just couldn't be foot soldiers. So my uncle worked, he was a science major, so he was a medic. And then my dad was a distribution clerk. He said, yeah, they called me out everything they wanted, but they didn't treat me right. They couldn't even get a roll of toilet paper. And I made sure of that. And I know he did. So,
that was my favorite story, definitely.
Yeah, take me or leave me. But if you don't take me, the time will come when you'll need me more than I will need you. That's kind of the way I looked at it. And we integrated, I had 2 years. And I said, I'm going to make these be the best 2 years I could possibly have. Because when I leave here, I'm going to Howard University. And I'm not going to have to deal with this. And I had made up my mind I was going to Howard when I was in 6th grade. So, this was just one more thing for me to do before I left here and went to Washington, D.C. So I just saw it as, hey, it's going to be what it's going to be. Well, here it is. They start off, we are going to protest because of the flag. We don't want the Confederate flag flying, and we go to school here now. Well, then we don't want them singing Dixie. That's not their time. I don't care. They can fly whatever flag they want to fly. It's not going to worry me. They can sing Dixie as long as they want to. It's not going to worry me. I'm not singing it, but they can sing if they want to.
What, the Tiger Rag or something? That was
Tiger Rag. Well, they thought it was Dixie, but it was Tiger Rag. Okay. So it ran, well, if they play that again, we're going to protest. We're going to march. We're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. Y'all do what you want to do. Here, they started it up. That was their fight song. It wasn't Dixie. It was Tiger Rag. And here they are, run it off, leaving the school grounds. Hey, I'm going to get on the bus because that's what I always do. I don't step on a pep rally. We don't win no way. So on the bus and waited like I normally, and it started. And I saw all these people getting. I said, what in the world? Okay. Well, they left and they going to protest. They stayed away from school 2 weeks. Oh no, classes didn't stop just because you stopped. I don't think so. So we did stay home. I think Daddy let us stay home maybe one day to think about it. And after that, he said, well, it's up to you. You're the oldest, because I think one was in third grade and one was in fourth grade, something like that. So you make the decision. I said, okay, we going to school. Because I got to get to Howard. I can't get to Howard protesting. I go. So it got to the point that, oh, they was going to stop us from getting on the bus. Oh, yes, I'm not going. No, if our kid's not going, you're not going either. My dad said, oh, no. I'm going to work late and y'all going to get on that bus. We got on that bus and he went on to work. And, to this day, some people have something to say about that. No. The grown folks were supposed to handle that, not the children, because some of those children missed out on scholarships and never did get situated after they did that. Because school went on without them. I mean, that was almost like, that's what we want you to do. That's what we expect you to do. But no. Oh, we had custom service, just like the bus driver would pull up to our door and we'd come out the house and get on the bus to make sure there was no more arguments on the corner. Okay. So even after they started coming back, that was the bus stop. Because going back on that corner because I don't know what they're going to do. So they want to catch the bus, they're going to have to catch it at your house. So it ain't like that, but it's okay. So when all was said and done, and different things had happened, and every reunion that we have had, and we've started having them, we started off every 10 years. Now we're doing it every 5 years. Every 5 years, something comes up in regards to that and how someone was affected by that. And of course, it was predominantly Caucasian students. Mm-hmm. But for example, this last one, a young man came to me because we went through a situation. I'm a singer, and I didn't know anything. We didn't know anything about South Carolina AllState Chorus at Rosenwald. We didn't know nothing about that. But when I got to Lexington High, they had people trying out for AllState Chorus, and you got to be away from school that weekend and that Friday and practice and all. Oh, it was wonderful. And everybody's like, well, I'm like, well, what is that? Well, I was on chorus. My chorus teacher encouraged me to try out, which that was crazy too, because they had rides. They would ride their students over there. My dad had to take me by myself. Well, same thing like the library. We weren't allowed in the library. The librarian said we couldn't check books out of her library. So we had to go to Columbia to go to the library if I had work to do like that. Just crazy stuff like that. But we did the tryout and we had rehearsal that night. I didn't even go. I think I stayed home to babysit or something. And my people started coming, knocking on the door. You made it. I made what? What are you talking about? You made a state chorus. What? Really? Okay. Well, now this is going to be interesting. So my mom and dad like, how are you going to do that? They're not going to let you. Well, our choral director husband was military, and they had gone to all these different bases, and color didn't matter to her. She was just working with the talent, and she had made the recommendation. She had made a referral, and she assured my parents that I would be taken care of, and I was. And we had this little situation where here we go back to P, and I'm sorry. This man just cried. Now, mind you, they didn't have but a few that made it, so we kind of combined to help them to get along and let them stay in the room with us. He cried because I was staying in the room with them white girls. Oh, no, that's not right. She got to stay. Well, where's she going to stay? The beach. Where's she going to stay? I don't know. It ain't right. It ain't right. She can't stay in the room with them white girls because something will happen when and she can't sleep in the bed with them. I know she ain't sleeping in the bed. Well, where I'm going to sleep on the floor? I don't think so. My parents paid their money Did your parents pay theirs? Never mind. Don't answer that question. So then we practiced, and then we had some free time. So we went to the amusement park. And I don't like the rides. I'm not a ride person. But I rode every ride there was to ride. A different white boy that had made AllState chorus. Took turns. Oh no, you're not riding by yourself. You're gonna ride with us, but I don't want to ride. Oh yes, you gonna ride because we're gonna make him cry some more. He gonna know one of these times he's gonna stop crying because we're gonna really make him cry. And they did. And we had a wonderful time. And one of the gentlemen, not grown, we all grown now, brought that up the other night. He said that was just one example. He said, but I looked at you and I saw all that you went through, but you still continued to be you, and you haven't changed a bit. And had I not seen that, because my parents was pushing, especially my father was pushing in that other direction, that they're no good. They, oh yeah, you know, they're going to be trouble. They're mean, they're nasty. And I didn't see that. I didn't see that in you at all. And now I'm in a situation where I'm dealing with different people, and I'm thankful for that experience, because had I followed along with what my father had said, I would be in a world of trouble right now. And he's dead and gone, but I would be in a world of trouble. And he said, but of course, different things. In his business world, he only dealt with certain individuals anyway. He said, but in the world today, realistically, you can't do that. So I think, in answer to your question, I see it coming back, but I think it's a sad thing. I think we really need to stop what we're doing, because we've come too far to turn around and go back now.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I know that story. I've heard that before about the AllState trip, which I think is absolutely hilarious. But also you had mentioned to me in some stories before that some of the girls believe that you had razor blades or something crazy.
Yes, I had shortly, I'd been over there for a while, and the situation was they had a study hall on my schedule. Well, let me go back. When I first went, we filled out the schedule and everything, and I was told that was the wrong schedule. That was a college prep schedule. And I was also told I was on the Honor Society. I had been on that since middle school. I was told I could not be on the Honor Society because they were two different things, and I did not qualify for the one at Lexington. Wow. Then I was told that I couldn't maintain that schedule because I was not going to college. Well, my father had to take off again there and explain to them that this was the schedule, and there was no doubt about my going to college. These were college prep. So they said, well, but there's a problem here with the algebra and the geometry and all of that. She hadn't taken algebra 2 yet. And you got her signed up for geometry, blah, 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 blah. He said, okay, well, what can we do about that? Well, she's gonna have to go to summer school, and we're not offering it in summer school. You got to go to Columbia, blah, blah, blah. Well, he said, okay. So I went to that first session of summer school, and I got my algebra 2. So here we go. Well, then when they got it straight, they had a study hall. And I don't need no study hall. I go home in the afternoon and I do my work and I do my chores. That's a waste of time. What else can I do? So I went to the principal's office and I explained that to him. And he said, okay, well, how about you go to the nurse's office? They're always looking for nurses. And then they had the Future Nurses Club. So I joined that. That was fine. I'm down there one day in a pocketbook fair. Just normal things that a girl would have at that age. And the white girls in there, of course, I'm the only Black one in there. White girls just jump back and look. And I just bit down and said, so finally one of them came down to help me a little bit. She said, can I see your razor? I said, what razor? They told us that y'all carry razors. And the other girl bent down, she said, well, can I see your knife? What knife? What are you talking about? I don't have a razor. The only razors in my house is the razors that my daddy used to shave with, and we are not allowed to touch them. And knives are only in the kitchen that my grandmother cooks with. Every now and then she let me help her cut up a chicken, but I don't know nothing about carrying no weapons like that. Well, we were told that y'all carry razor blades and knives, and you'll cut, and the razor blade make your skin go inside out. I said, well, maybe it does, but I won't be doing it. I said, well, I don't know anything about that. And then after that, we started talking, and one thing led to another and another, and I answered a lot of questions. But no, no, just crazy things like that. And these are things that they were told. Mm-hmm. But we were told that we were not going to be accepted. That was true in some cases. That was extremely true. Our prom, they didn't want us to have a prom together. Now, this was the parents. They did not want us to have a prom. So consequently, the parents who did want us to have one made arrangements for us to have it. We could not have it on that campus. We had to have it somewhere else. We couldn't sell tickets. We had to sell tickets across the street.
Wow.
So, but they made a way. They made a way for us. And because all the parents weren't like that. Well, then again, all the parents wasn't necessarily from Lexington proper. Right. They had moved here. So they had different ideas anyway. So that was that story.
Wow. So after experiencing all of that, how was that transition to finally getting to Howard University, a historically Black college and university, also referred to as a HBCU?
Well, like I said, when I was in 6th grade, I decided that I was going to Howard. Well, 6th grade was a momentous occasion for me because I also decided that I needed to stop making A's and B's and getting along with the teachers and everything. And I just needed to probably make some F's and D's and so I could have some friends. And so when I came home that 6 weeks, because we were doing 6 weeks thing then, and that was the second 6 weeks. So when I came home with that, my parents had a high bed. You know how people have high beds today. My parents had a high bed, but I didn't know how high it was until my dad lifted me up and seemed like he was never going to get me to sitting down in that bed talk to me. And he explained to me in so many instances that in so many ways, look, you got to get an education. That's just the bottom line. First of all, you're a Black girl in a white world. And in order to make it, you're going to have some education because they can't take that from you. They're going to try to take everything else they can from you, but they can't take that from you. You got to get that. And this thing about having friends, I am your friend. Me and your mother and your grandparents, and all, we're the only friends you got. Because, you know, when you think about friends and stuff, do they feed you? No, sir. Do they buy your clothes? No, sir. Do they buy your shoes? No, sir. But then you don't need them. Where are they going? What can they do for you? Okay. Then another time, and this was in Lexington High too, as I thought about that, because I had always, the other thing I wanted to do was be a cheerleader, because I love football. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have too much of a problem with that because he was the one who introduced me to it, because I'm sitting there with him watching the games, okay? But I wanted to be a cheerleader. Well, I was a cheerleader at Rosenwald. Well, we got to Lexington High School. We couldn't cheer. We didn't know how to cheer. Now, we had championship teams at Rosenwald, but we didn't know how to cheer. So they had the tryouts. Just so happened they were having the tryouts the same day they were having the tryouts for AllState Chorus. I had to make a decision. And my father had told me earlier, and he said it again. I don't see any professional cheerleaders making 5-figure income. Now you show me one of them, and then, it might be a difficult decision to make today or for when that time comes. I couldn't find one. I took my little happy self on and got on that bus and went to try out for AllState and ended up making it. But, crazy things like that. But after that discussion in 6th grade, also, I decided, look, I'm going to make these good grades and I'm going to get myself on up out of here and go to Howard University. Because I had heard about Howard from some of the people in Florida. And he had friends that had gone to Howard that were attorneys and, really making it in the world. And I just thought about it. I said, well, this is my ticket away from Lexington and all of this confusion. And I can go and be with my folk and get along a whole lot better. This is also my key to do what I want to do, because the more I checked into it, Howard had everything going for it. I mean, it's a one-stop shop. You could stay there and get your bachelor's, your master's, your doctorate. It had a medical school. It had a dental school. It had everything right there on the campus. I said, oh, I can't beat this. But this is my ticket away from this confusion here in Lexington. And that's exactly how I decided to do it. Then I found out that there were a lot of people in Florida, a lot of my friends in Florida was planning on going to Howard too. So it all worked out.
Mm-hmm. So with that experience from that transition from Lexington High to Howard, were there any advantages of having those 2 years of integration and then going to HBCU?
It truly was. Because, well, first of all, Howard does not have, you have to make, most colleges, they look at your SAT. I forget the other one, but anyway, the SAT was one of the big ones at that point. Howard has the freshman entrance exam, which means you come in and they tell you they heard all the freshman folk up in there and you ready to take this test, and they say, look to your left, look to your right. You won't be seeing them when come graduation time. Somebody on one of them sides will not be with you when it comes time to graduate. But today we are taking this test so we can place you. Some of you will be true freshmen. Some of you will need assistance to get to be freshmen. Others will be advanced freshmen. Some of you may even go farther than that. But please know, do the best you can, because this will be what will determine where you start off at Howard University, if you stay at Howard University, because some of you won't be staying at Howard University based on the results of this. I mean, they were quite frank about it. Well, as I took that, Rosenwald was really great. It gave me an excellent foundation because I didn't have any problems when I went to Lexington High, but I was introduced to so many different things at Lexington High within those 2 years that just added on to what I had at Rosenwald. So therefore, when I took the freshman entrance exam, I actually went in as a sophomore. I missed my freshman year completely and a good bit of my sophomore year. And that also helped when I changed my major. That meant that I didn't miss any time and I could still graduate on time. And I was also able to do things like I audited classes in the School of Religion because I wanted to be a good church musician. So different things like that. And I was able to set up music programs in a daycare. And I was able to go out and work in the churches and learn the different, so many different things. I got more than that bachelor's degree at Howard University, but a lot of it was based on the time at Rosenwald plus the time at Lexington High.
Wow. So once you graduated in college, You were able to come back. You were one of those real success stories, I guess you could say. You graduated college and instantly got a full-time job, but not only did you get a full-time job, you actually got a job in Lexington School District 1, and you were teaching at Old Rosenwald, which was then named Lexington Intermediate School. So during that experience, I can imagine that you had some same administrators and teachers, and even some past classmates that were now also teaching as your colleagues. So what was that transition like?
Well, that was again, as I say now, that was another look at God moment, because that was my plan. My plan was to go to Indiana University and continue to sing opera. And then the other part to that was I decided I wanted to go to Kansas, if not to be a music therapist, because we did not have a good music therapy program in the state of South Carolina. And anyway, I was placed on a waiting list for both of them. And that was fine, because that's just the way it was supposed to be. So I decided to take the NTE, and I had some interesting options. My dad said, well, you can stay here and, you can keep the house, while we still work and this, that, and no, I don't think so. I do not think so. So we got to come up with something. So I said, well, I'm going to go with taking the NTE and see if that'll work. And took the NTE. Here we go again. Made an A. There were a very high score. Howard didn't prepare us for that, because in Washington, D.C., and in most of these northern states, you don't take the NTE. It's based on what you did in college, and they you have to take a test, and then they'll give you your teaching certificate. But anyway, here, you got to take it. So I took it, very successful. 2 weeks before school opened, I was offered a job teaching math. Well, I could teach math because I took a little bit of everything, because I was thinking about being a pharmacist. So I had 2 years of science and math dealing with when I was in pharmacy. Then I switched over to the School of Music. So everything happens for a reason. So they said, but when you start teaching, if something becomes available in music, we will offer that to you, wherever it is in this district. We know that. So I took them at their word, which that was interesting too, because the lady at the State Department had never seen a transcript from Howard University. Wow. So they pulled up on my teaching certificate. And I had to go over there. She had my NTE grades, but she did not have my transcript. I went to her office. There, my transcript was on her desk. She didn't recognize what it was, but I did, because of course I've seen that emblem all the time. But she said that was the very first time that she had ever seen a transcript from Howard University in Washington, D.C. So here we go again. But got my teaching credentials. I taught, and I went on and took, just in case I was going to have to stay in math, I started taking classes so I could get certified in that too. Well, it didn't. I ended up getting a job. They offered me one in Gilbert. No, my aunt's up there. I don't want to go there. Then became available in Pillion. Oh, no. That's not happening. I stay right here. I'll teach math from now on out. No, that's not happening. I'm not even going there for an interview. That's not happening. So then a job became available. One of the music teachers, we had two at that time, got a job on teaching out at Fort Jackson, where her husband was anyway. So she was ready to run, and I was ready to jump right in and take her place, and I did. But then back to Pillion, a couple of years into this teaching thing, I got a notice from the music teacher down there wanting to know if I would come and do a presentation for Black History Month, because I had done one at some of the other schools. I said, oh, of course. Well, I had a yellow Camaro. only yellow Camaro in the area. That was interesting too. But I go down there, I'm wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. Hey, I've done it at the other schools, no big deal. But I'm going to Pillion. Okay, I'm going to Pillion High School. Okay. I get down there. I am met. They carry me in and they escort me everywhere. I leave my car. When I come back out there, the gentleman escorts me to my car. They make sure I get in my car. And he says, I said, well, what in the world? He said, we just want to make sure that nobody bothered your car. I'm like, okay, let me go back to Lexington. And this is happening again. So, it is what it is. But after all was said and done, the combination has always worked out and everything's always fallen into place. But being back at old Rosenwald, that was quite an experience because over the years for Black History Month, we've had all types of fun things for the kids to do. Well, what do you think this room was? Or what do you think that room was? And miraculously enough, most of the rooms remained to be about the same because of their makeup, and especially our gym and our room and of course the cafeteria didn't change and all of that. So it was very interesting. But if anyone would have ever told me that I would have stayed at that school for 34 years, and I had been a student there for 10 years. So I told him, I said, yeah, I've been walking these halls for 44 years. What's up with that? So it was quite an experience. It really was. And then three, when I first got back, at least three people on staff had been there before. Mm-hmm. But the librarian had been at Rosenwald. Oh. And a fifth grade teacher, Miss Super. But then now she was the librarian. And that was librarian at that time. And then another young lady had been a student there. Miss Black had been a student there. And then she was there with the working with the students in their reading. She was a reading skills teacher at that point. And then when I went back to our teachers' meetings, at that time, all of the teachers got together at a certain time. It's too many of us now, but had stopped that. But we were assigned to different committees and we would meet on certain days. And I ended up on the committee with our librarian, the lady that had been our librarian, who will remain nameless, who did not want us in her library dealing with her books. And she was on this committee with me. But she was also one of them that got up and walked out the first time I did the national anthem as a solo. There were certain teachers that got up and would not sit and listen to me sing that. Mm. At those times, the late Congressman Floyd Spence was there to speak, but they got up and walked out as I was singing the national anthem, and he kind of made note of it. But here we sit on this committee together. I'm no longer your student that you are denying the use of your facilities. I am a coworker. So, and she became a friend.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh, yes.
So during your time teaching within Lexington School District 1, how many women and men of color were teachers during your 35-year teaching career? Let's start at Lexington Intermediate School.
Yes, my first year there were, as I said, 1, 2, 3, because there was another lady that was there. Then as they retired, for I'd say probably about 7 or 8 years, I was the only one on staff. Wow. And I was the music teacher at that point. So there was no one in, quote, the regular classroom after I left with the math. There was a custodian, and there were 2 individuals working in the cafeteria. Then we had a speech therapist that came.
Mhm.
And that was it. And then the funny thing was, a couple of those years, we were basically 5th and 6th grade. A couple of those years, our 5th grade went back to the elementary school, and we just became an exclusive 6th grade group. And they divided the related arts people, the music, the PE, and the art. They divided us. We spent part of the time at the elementary school and part of the time at the intermediate school.
Mm-hmm.
So later on to find out from a PTA member of Lexington Elementary that they were also using me as their only minority representation on that staff. And that staff was much bigger than the staff at the intermediate school. So I was the minority representative for 2 schools at one time.
Oh my goodness. Wow, I didn't know that one. Or you might have told me and I forgot, but what? Okay.
Yes.
Now at Gilbert Elementary, because that was your final year of teaching, you did 1 year there. So how many people of color were on staff there?
Me.
Okay. I was hoping I would at least get 2, you and somebody else, but okay, that makes sense though.
Me.
Wow. Okay. So now
I was really part-time.
right. Yeah, you were that final year. That is true.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. There you go. That's why I'm asking these questions. Now, how many were in school? Oh, go ahead.
The other part to that was my interview. The other music teacher that interviewed me had been my past student at
Wow.
school years before that. So it was like, she said, well, when I saw the name, I don't even know why I had to show up. Strictly formality.
Wow. So a former student, see, I hadn't even thought about your former students now being in that,
Yes,
but
yes.
wow. So during your teaching career, how many people of color were in administration at the time?
I'm glad you said my teaching career. Because that's simple.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's interesting. I left all of that administrative deal behind at Rosenwald.
Right.
We had principals, assistant. I take that back. 1, Miss Prezi.
Wow. Yep. That's right. She's still
1.
a vice principal. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she was with us for maybe 3 years, maybe not that much. But anyway, that was our first person of color in the office, because we didn't even have secretaries.
Mm-hmm.
Rosenwald had everything, but the other schools, when they integrated, those individuals retired or went to the district office. Because we have some that Mr. Suba went to the district office for a while. That was our principal. We didn't have a vice principal. He did everything.
Mm.
Him and the male teachers.
Right.
And secretary went on and retired. One of them retired and the other one got another job. But in my history, Ms. Prezi has been it as far as administration is concerned.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Lexington School District 1. And
I was just getting ready to say that.
And she has only been retired 10 years. Officially 10 years this year. Because she retired when she found out I was going to have my youngest, and she just turned 10.
Mhm.
So but she still also continues to substitute when she can. But now we're going to fast forward. We're going to go to your political career, and we're going to go to 2008 when you were running for mayor. She laughs already because she knows where I'm going with this. Please tell the viewers about your experiences, especially I'm going to call it the phone call and the unwelcoming tenant.
Okay, the unwelcoming tenant. Yes. I will start with collecting signatures because that's what we did at that time. They have since stopped that. This is the first time. And actually, a lot of that was based on, I had to collect signatures when I was on council. I was able to get those. But a lot of that was prejudice because they knew that it wasn't enough signatures in the Black community for me to get all the signatures I needed. So I would have to go out into the other communities, which to me, kind of, I had a little advantage because I was a teacher, and a lot of these individuals I had either taught them or I had taught their children. So I was able to do that. However, when I was getting ready to do this last time, get the signatures, I went to this one house that a student and a past student and her husband referred me to that house. Oh, they're wonderful people, nice older couple, and you should be able to get those 2 signatures. I said, okay. I go over there and I go knocking on the door, and bam, here this man come to the door with this gun, looked like a shotgun, saying, "Get your blankety blank off my blankety blank porch." Ooh, I did. As quickly as I could. I did. Okay. Then one of the other individuals who ran, the gentleman that ran, he said that someone got behind him with a baseball bat. So this was a dangerous situation for us to be out there trying to collect signature just because we wanted to serve on council. So anyway, then I got crazy and decided to run for mayor. And there were any number of things that took place, and election day was really bad. But leading up to election day, I was coming home one night and I'm checking my messages, and this gentleman left me a very ugly message to the point that he threatened my life and dare say if I were to win, there would be no doubt that I would not live to serve in that capacity. So I called, the chief the chief of police had already had an idea that something might happen. So I had his personal information to get in contact with him if I needed to. Well, I just called the police department and told them I needed an officer to come because of the situation. Well, the officer came. The officer was a young Black man. And I explained the situation to him, and he says, well, it's nothing I can do about it because this is a higher situation than me. And I don't see where's the problem. I'm like, excuse me, you don't see the problem. Did you hear the same thing I heard? Yeah, but ain't nothing I can do about it because I don't know who it is and blah, blah. I said, well, I need a detective. But I can't do nothing like that until, it's the chief. The chief got to tell me that. I can't do that on my own. I said, okay. Now, this is Friday night, and the chief won't be back till Monday morning. I'm saying to myself, oh, okay, your chief might not be back till Monday morning, but my chief going to be hearing this right now. So I politely left him standing there at the door, and I went in the kitchen, and I got my cell phone, and I called. And he said, put him on the phone right now. I said, okay. I come back and I said, somebody want to talk to you. And that was oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. I bet you a detective was at my house that next morning. I bet you that. And he got that. And they ran with it with somebody. in Columbia that had been encouraged to do that. He took a dare, and the dare was given by somebody in Lexington. So then the weekend before the election, my signs disappeared. All of my signs disappeared. They were taken up. And I later on found out that that happened with the same person who had encouraged that individual to make that phone call. So in the day of the election, you can have people be out there for you. You can't be everywhere at one time. So you can have people that can stand there and speak for you. They're not interfering with anything. Well, the person that I was running against told them they had to leave. And if they didn't leave, they was going to call the police on them. And did so because the police showed up. So they left. So intimidation, it was a lot that went down. And I went to 2 different groups with that information and tried to get some help, didn't get any. I went to the election board, of which now, so ironic, but I'm now on that election board. And it was too late at that point because actually a commissioner should have handled that situation that particular date when it was taking place, but it didn't happen. So in a way, that's the reason why I'm on there, because this is not going to happen to another candidate. It is not going to, I don't care what color they are, it's not going to happen to another candidate. And I knew I had 2 strikes against me. I knew I was the wrong color, and I knew I was a woman, and that is not supposed to be happening. Those are 2 things in the town of Lexington that has really caused some serious issues. That above anything disturbs me more than anything. Because again, that's my father raised me. You know, you got 2 strikes against you. Do not give them that 3rd. And if you get, erase those 2 strikes. I mean, yeah, I know this. You don't have to tell me that I'm a Black woman. I know that. I've been knowing that ever since I came to this world. But then again, you don't have to you cannot tell me what I can and cannot do just because of that situation, because it's not going to change. It is not going to change. So I said, well, you need to run again because sorry, you only get 1 chance at me on that line. If you were going to do it, you should have done it then. But now, you're not going to get that chance. And now that I'm in this position, I like it better. Because again, I really feel that I am in a position that I can help this to not happen to somebody else. And, everything happens for a reason. Here I am. And I had that to happen too. I've been out there. I normally have 12, 13, 14 precincts that I'm in charge of on election day, especially for the big election. And they've called me to come and talk to them and this, that, and that. Well, who are you? And blah, 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 blah. This is who I am. This is who I represent. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to tell so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. Be my guest. Right is right, is wrong, and you are wrong. Now, I want you to go down there and tell the director, please report me. Just make sure you get there before I do. Just make sure. It's real simple. And I had a couple of them I've met down there. Didn't matter. What I said was the truth. And the director put it very well. This is your commissioner. If she told you that, that's what it is. I'm not overruling her.
Right.
So everything happens for a reason. So now the injustice that I was served, I am now there to make sure that that's not served to anybody else in Lexington County.
So, yeah, I like how you put that. That was really good. What advice would you give to minorities that want to run for a public office within Lexington or Lexington County?
I would say Number one, get organized. Cover all of your bases. Discuss all of the whatnots and wherefores, because there are many. But be organized. Don't go half-stepping. Cover all of your bases, and there are quite a few. You can do it, but it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take your, which now it's kind of hard, especially with COVID, because you can't really knock on doors and talk to people like that. Well, we couldn't knock on doors and talk to people like that anyway, because they're not talk to us. They're not going to really want to be concerned about what we feel. But take every opportunity that you can to get to know people, to speak with people, to get them to know you. Like I said, but organization, know what you're going to do. Know how you're going to approach these individuals. Be it written correspondence, have your money together, television ads, any way that's possible, but organization, and be willing to give the time and the effort. It can be done, but you can't wake up and say, well, I'm going to run for this office and I would get it. That's not going to happen. I'm here to tell you, it's not going to happen. Because first of all, you're going to even have to fight some of the individuals of your own race. Because again, going back to my daddy, we can act just like a bunch of crabs in a bucket. We want to see individuals climb. I can give you an example. I was approached to run for Lexington County Council. As we know, minorities have not ever had any representation on Lexington County Council, male or female, anybody. No minority representation. I was approached to do this, and I was giving it some thought. And I went to another group and discussed it with them. Well, they didn't think that was going to work because, you're a woman and they're not going to vote for you and blah, 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 blah. But now we got this young man, and we think this young man would be great for it. And we're going to talk to him. And he said, blah, blah, blah. Didn't work. Young man had no concerns about what was going on here in this community. No questions about it because he doesn't work in this community. He's from this community, but he doesn't work in this community anymore. Right. So his priorities are entirely different. But they weren't willing to support me because I was a woman. So we got a lot of things to do here. A lot to do.
So what is one prayer that you have for the future of Lexington, South Carolina, and for future generations that will reside here?
I always pray for peace and understanding. That will carry you far. We have not had the major issues that have been going on around us. That's not to say that we won't have them, but we have not had those major issues. And I pray that they don't ever come to us. As far as understanding, our young people are growing up together and they're working with each other and understand and having that capacity to understand each other. That I have seen that make a world of difference. Then the older ideas, even though they're starting to come back, they're still meeting with some, I would say they're meeting with some questions. Well, why do you want me to do this? Or why do you want me to say that? Why is it, I can't do this or I can't do that? It's got to be some understanding and then communication. Let's talk about it. Before you take action or you make that decision, let's talk about it, because there's always another way of looking at things. Communication is vitally important. And if you don't talk about it, a lot of times you'll get the wrong idea about what's going on. I can go back to when my purse fell. And my purse would not have fallen, and they would not have been there. I mean, all those girls went out, they got friends. All those girls went out and said, well, now, I don't know about the rest of these people. Constance ain't got nothing like that in her pocket. So, communication. And like I said, at my reunions, I've had more than one occasion where people have come. This one girl came to me and she said, can I give you a hug? And I said, that wasn't at this one, by the way, but we weren't hugging at this one.
It is COVID.
Some of us were, but some years back, at one of them said, can I give you a hug? And I said, yeah. She gave me a hug and she backed up. She says, that was just for being you, because I know you had it hard, but I never saw you angry. I never saw you cussing and fussing. I just saw you just going from class to class, and that singing, every time you would sing, it would just do something to me. And I'm like, how can she sing like that? And somebody just called her the N-word. Mm-hmm. Well, to me, that was ignorance, and that's not what I'm about. I said, I've been called a lot of things, but if it's not me, it's not me. Mm-hmm. She said, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I always saw in you, and I never had a chance to tell you. So I'm here tonight at this reunion. I don't know when I'm coming back, but I want to tell you that. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. So that's it. Mm-hmm. Let's talk to each other. And let's really get to the bottom of what we can do in order to get along. That makes a difference, big difference.
We're not just talk, but we have to listen.
Now that's...
And be genuine with the actions we take after we talk and listen.
Because action speaks louder than words. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they say that, that goes back to my church upbringings. You can read the Bible. I mean, you can have that big cross around your neck and have that big Bible. But if you don't really read it and you don't put it into action, you may as well put it on the table and let it collect dust.
Right.
Because, as they say, actions speak louder than words. In fact, you don't have to say anything if you just do something. Yep. And there you are. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and I gave you this example, and this just happened. Mm-hmm. Your grandfather passed away when my father passed away. I was sitting there looking out the window, looking so lost, and here this big bunch of roses. They were, oh my goodness, it was 4 dozen roses that came strolling down it, because they were so big, the person behind them, I couldn't see the person. All I could see was, what in the world is this? They came down there and just put them on the table, just covered up the table, and then just left. Well, they said, I was so sorry to hear about your father passing. And that was it. Then the other night, that individual came and said what difference I had made in their lives when integration came and they got to know what was going on from the point of view of the Black students versus what the white students had been being told was going to happen and how it was going to be when integration really came and how it had affected his life. And his wife stood there and said, "You are a household name. For I knew about you before I knew about any of his other classmates." Because Constance said, and Constance did this. I said, looked strangely at her. And him too, didn't know impressive. But you just never know.
Yeah.
Actions speak louder than words. So a lot of times you don't have to say nothing, just do it. And just do it and walk away. Right. So,
well, we're coming to the wrap up of our conversation, and I came up with the 2 questions because of you. And I asked these same questions to everybody. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the most important and humanizing questions of this interview. And they happen to be about music. So for the music teacher, what is your favorite song that represents you?
I would have to say my favorite song. And you probably know what it is. Father, I stretch my hand to thee, no the help I know. Yep. Father, I stretch my hands to thee, no other help I know. That's it.
Yep, that was it. Well, I had some others because we listen to all kind of music in the house.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
And secondly, what song do you believe best represents minority women of your generation?
Respect. 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 Come on, Aretha. I can't do it like you do it, but respect. That's all. Give me some respect.
Well, Constance Fleming, Momma, thank you for your time and telling us your story. To all of you watching, take care, and may there be peace, love, understanding, and social justice for all.